Hello world! I usually started the videos by saying my name is Julia, the owner of JC Travel Ukraine, and welcome to my channel. But this time everything is different. We haven't been making any videos since Russia invaded Ukraine 1 year ago, and my business is obviously on hold now. This year it's just hard to describe how difficult it was and what we've been through. But I'm alive, I'm here in Ukraine, and we keep being resilient. At the moment, I'm in Gostomel. In April 2022, the whole world found out about the horrible crimes perpetrated by the Russian army. Irpin, Bucha, Gostomel, Borodyanka, once just the names of peaceful towns, in 2022 became synonyms for Russian brutality and murder and for Ukrainian heroism. Gostomel in particular is a symbolic place. The Russian invasion started right here. They tried to land and begin the occupation of Kyiv from here, and this is where our army kicked them out. One day after our victory, these cities will have special memorials to our heroes who gave their lives in battles, and in memory to all civilians who were tortured, abused, and killed. One day, perhaps, travelers will visit these places, and it's important that the stories are told and heard now. We just want to show you our lust for life, that life always defeats death, and that Ukrainians never lose hope. With all respect to human grief in Irpin and Bucha, we just want to show you what is possible to show now. I'd like to introduce Asa, my friend and a tour guide who will take the lead in this video.
On the 24th of February 2022, Gostomel became one of the first targets of Russian invaders. They tried to seize Antonov Airport by landing forces there. There were heavy battles for the village and the airport, but Gostomel was still occupied. On April the 2nd, the city was liberated along with the Kyiv region. Together with other satellites of Kyiv, Gostomel returns back to life. However, locals are complaining that it's happening too slowly as compared to Bucha or Irpin. Since the beginning of the full-scale invasion of Russia to the territory of Ukraine, the city of Irpin had suffered a significant destruction. In order to prevent the enemy from advancing to Kyiv, armed forces of Ukraine blew up the bridge over the Irpin River. And the bridge which connects Irpin with Kyiv became the only evacuation route and the real bridge of life for the residents of the captured cities of the Kyiv region. Ukrainian soldiers, territorial defense volunteers, and paramedics worked throughout the day to evacuate civilians from the besieged town, while Russia bombarded the fleeing population with artillery and mortar fire. Just imagine, every few minutes a car reached the edge of the bridge, and out of it jumped civilians, including disabled passengers, as well as very small children, and they all headed down to the wooden pontoon bridge to get to the safety across the river. And then the drivers turned their cars around, making their way through dozens of abandoned vehicles to get back to the front line to transport more victims of the war. To make it at least once through that line is a miracle. to continue going back to that hell can only be described as a selfless heroism. Altogether, about 40,000 people were evacuated through this road of life. The blown-up bridge will not be rebuilt. It is planned to keep it in the same form as it is now, but they say in future they plan to make a memorial here. In April, when the Russian troops left Kyiv region, a new embankment bridge was built here to restore a possibility of passage. On the other side, a new permanent bridge is being built. Despite that fact that this place is a testimony of destruction and death, here, along with pain, you can feel a thirst to life, a faith in victory, and a hope in God. Dozens of cars damaged by the occupiers, in which Ukrainians tried to leave the city, remain here in Irpin. Today this place is called Cemetery of Cars. Most of them have bullet and shrapnel marks, which are evidences of the war crimes committed by the Russian occupiers on the territory of Ukraine. The authorities explained that most of these cars belonged to people who didn't have time to evacuate. Some were completely burned, some had broken windows, and some had the words "children" written on them. Today, you can see sunflowers painted on some of the vehicles, but how did they appear here? The artist Trek Thunder Kelly came all the way to Ukraine from Los Angeles with his project, which is called Flowers of Hope, in order to draw the attention of the whole world to the war in Ukraine. The main goal of Trek Thunder is to depict sunflowers in his works, because this flower is a symbol of Ukrainian national identity, hope, unity, and strength. It is also a symbol of mourning and memory of fallen Ukrainian heroes. An artist from Kyiv, Olena Yanko, joined Trek Thunder to paint on cars. And the artist said, "I am very sad because each of these destroyed cars represents a life that has been changed or ended. And this cemetery is a reminder of all those lives. But flowers are a rebellious response to destruction, and this is hope." In November of 2022, the most anonymous person in the world, the street artist Banksy, visited Ukraine to make his graffitis on the walls of Irpin, Borodyanka, Gostomel, which were ruined by the occupiers. We are still in Irpin. Here you can find a graffiti with a gymnast who literally leans on the abyss with a bandage on her neck. This may symbolize both the fragility of peace in the modern world as well as the beauty which will arise from the ruins of today. On the other hand, maybe it is the modern Ukraine struggling to balance on the destroyed Soviet past. Since Banksy doesn't really explain his artworks, so there can be many interpretations here. Banksy once again drew the attention of the West to the key global problem of our time, the Russian-Ukrainian war, and the fact that Banksy spoke on this topic confirms our struggle against the occupiers as one of the main problems of humanity today. In peaceful times, this was one of the most prestigious places to live in Bucha. This was a huge complex for 600 apartments with their own inner yard, kids' playground, sport facilities, park for the dogs. The territory was closed and protected. Only locals were able to get inside here. But during the occupation of Bucha, this complex suffered the most. Russian soldiers have chosen it for the living. Their tanks and vehicles were parked in the yard. I suppose this was the good location for them. While the occupiers were staying here, they've unlocked all of the apartments, crushed the furniture, stole valuable things and damaged people's homes, just for fun, just because they could. It's hard to believe, but during all the occupation there were still staying 16 people in the shelter in the underground, living next to the Russian soldiers. But they managed to went through all this nightmare, and thanks God they all are alive and safe now. After the army left this place, all the windows were broken, some parts of the walls were missing, and of course most of them have bullet and shrapnel marks. As of now, you can see that the life is coming back here, that new windows are shining bright, and the locals are coming back to their homes to get to their day-to-day issues, to what they used to do in their life before the war. I'm sure all of you have heard about the biggest airplane in the world called Mriya, which means the dream. It became operational all the way back in Soviet times in 1988 and was the only copy of this class in the world. Our Mriya became popular worldwide during the COVID times. Only in one flight it could fulfill the needs of a small European country in anti-COVID drugs for about 6 months. But on 24th of February 2022, Russia attacked Ukraine and burned our Mriya down. But even though our big Mriya is burned down, today, number one, common for all the Ukrainians, big dream is the victory.